Good morning, hi, welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. I'm Kristin Omdahl and this is episode 286. We're here live in Southwest Florida watching the sunrise over the buildings and the trees to the east. And this is the Gulf of Mexico behind me. It is about 45 degrees outside here this morning and windy, so it's a bit nippy, which is why I have my big down parka on and a super cute hat. This is the Delta Flower hat, one of my free crochet patterns on my website. It has charts, written instructions, as well as video tutorial. You can find it on my website with Delta Flower. If you're joining me live, please say hello and let me know if you're crafting anything this morning. Good morning, Judy, Dee, Joanna, Karen. Thanks for joining live. I hope you're indoors and warm. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Karen. Hi, Mar. It is icy out here this morning. I know it's not technically, scientifically icy, but it's very cold to me. Good morning, Freezabee, Melissa, and Lily. Sitting still with windy 45 degrees and damp next to the water is brutal. Good morning, Edna and Joe, Gail. Lisa's working on this hat. Awesome, that's great. Well, I kept my promise from yesterday. I can't believe I remembered everything. Good morning, Tanya. Hi, Freezabee. So I mentioned, we talked about this shawl yesterday, and I brought a whole bunch of things to show you other parts or other ways to do drop stitch. Lisa's working on jewelry. I'm wearing a different pair. Oh, I've been calling these earrings the wrong name, by the way. Somebody corrected me yesterday. This is the Kelly earring from 80 Handmade Gifts. It's one of the fantastic earring patterns that makes a wonderful last minute gift because they're so quick to make. You've seen me make them here live on the air too. Good morning, Leah. Thanks for joining live. It takes about 5 minutes, give or take, to make each earring, so it's an incredibly easy and quick gift project. Yeah, Dee, I guess I could have stayed in the studio, but I already left my house to take Marlin, and you know, anytime I can or feel like I can do it, I'd rather come to the beach because I want to hear those waves every day, and I felt like I could do it today, so we'll see. Good morning, Ida. We'll see how long I last. I may not last 30 minutes, but I had to at least give it a try. So I'll wait a few minutes and see if there's any questions and say hello to more people, see what everybody is working on before I show you all my show and tell today. I brought a couple of books, I brought a couple of sample garments, and I've got lots to say about drop stitches in both knitting and crochet. Yeah, Dee, we'll see how long I last. It's 3 minutes so far, we'll see. The wind stopped, which is what's, I think, making me feel a little more hopeful. It's the wind that gets me more than anything else. You can dress for the temperature, you can't always dress for the wind. Hi Sherry, hi Naomi, thanks for joining live. All right, so what we talked about yesterday was this beautiful shawl from 80 Handmade Gifts, and now that it's sunny out today, you can really see those sequins. Look at how gorgeous Be So Dazzling yarn looks in there. So this shawl is done in 3 different yarns held together because I really love how you can see the texture of the yarn when you do drop stitches. No, this is a knit pattern. This is one of the knit patterns from 80 Handmade Gifts. This one's done in Be So Dazzling, Be So Tender, and Be So Sporty Bling yarns, all 3 held together. But look at those sequins, my goodness, beautiful. So anyways, this is one of the patterns from 80 Handmade Gifts, and as I was showing it yesterday, a bunch of people asked if there was something like this in crochet. And I said, well, yes. You can replicate, you can't make it identical, but you can replicate it in a number of different techniques, including broomstick lace, you can get this texture, hairpin lace, you can get this texture, and I could have brought books to show samples of that today, but I didn't, because what I was thinking of yesterday was this shawl that does a similar look in crochet. This one's done in Be So Dazzling yarn all by itself in the gold color, and this is where you alternate a V-stitch with a long set of crochet chains. And so it's not identical to this one, but you can see it does have a very similar look. Now this one is rectangular and that other one is triangular. So that's a little bit different as well, which is why I brought this one. This one does that same chain effect, but this one is, yes, it's a very fast knit bee. This is more of a triangular shape, and this is one of the shawls from this book. I don't know if you have this book or if it's something you've been wanting. It's my book called Crochet So Fine. And that particular pattern is called the Sprout Chain Shawlette, which shawlette means that it's smaller than a full-size shawl. But once you memorize this pattern, you will see that it is something that you can easily keep growing and make any size. Lots of people have made it in larger sizes. Because it's a top-down construction, so you would just continue on in pattern until, here we go. There's the pattern in the book. So that's done in one color. I'm going to show you some more pictures of it. Here's another pretty picture of it. This is one of the easiest shawl patterns you could ever make. So simple. And so delicate and beautiful. I love the flower edging on this. So I'll show you that again in this one. This one's done in Be So Sporty yarn. So that's a triangular shape, similar to the one in the Nina shawl in 80 Handmade Gifts. And then here is a rectangular version of it in crochet. This is in Be So Dazzling yarn. This is the tassel shawl on my website. So you can find all of these in a number of places. So what I wanted to talk about next is that the drop stitch here I've also done in other versions as well in knitting. And if you have this book or are interested, you can order it. It's called Knitting Rhapsody. And this one has a bunch of unusual construction shawls and wraps and skirts and ponchos, all sorts of fun things. And this is the piece that I wanted to talk about that has that same drop stitch. What's really interesting about this piece is that this cable is reversible. If you do a cable on a reversible stitch pattern, for example, this is done in one by one rib instead of stockinette, you end up making it reversible. So this would look identical on both sides. And what's great about that is that you can take something that is a scarf, twist it and make it, or wrap it around and make it a cowl, but if you twist it, you can make it a Mobius, and it will look identical on both sides. See if I can get the glare off of it. No, it's not difficult at all. This is one of the simplest cables. It's not very difficult at all. What makes it unique is that you do it on a stitch pattern that's reversible. So anybody that has a little bit of knitting knowledge should understand what I'm saying. So here it is. There you can see it twisted, and you can see it's this is one side and that's the other. So whether it's right or wrong side, look at, they are absolutely identical. Isn't that amazing? Thank you, Judy. And I put buttons on it, so the buttons could be, you put buttons on it so you can wear it tubular like a cowl, or twist it and put the buttons in, and then it turns into a Mobius. And you could make that longer and make it a shawl instead too. And if you made it longer and made it into a shawl, you could still put those buttons on it, wrap it twice and secure it, and then you'd have one of those giant voluminous cowls. So even a shawl could double as a cowl as well. So those projects are from Crochet So Fine and a Knitting Rhapsody. And what I didn't realize until I got here this morning is that regarding broomstick, oh, I do have a broomstick lace project I can show you in Crochet So Fine. But in Crochet So Lovely, one of my other books, I have several other projects that also mimic this elongated stitch. But here, this one's so pretty. Check this out. This is called the Tranquil Hairpin Lace Tunic, and that is a tunic sweater done in hairpin lace. And you can see it gives you that same texture. And this one is in crochet. Isn't that beautiful? I love the color and the way it's photographed. I've been looking to source a ribbon yarn for years to sell this again. It has side vents. And as complicated as this looks, it's actually not that difficult to make either. Once you understand how to do hairpin lace, this is one of the simplest versions of hairpin lace. Thank you, Christy. Thanks, Grace. Thank you, Mar. So pretty. I sold that in a sample sale many years ago, and I'll tell you what, I have regretted it ever since. Every time I look at it, I go, yeah, that would look really great at the beach, you know. Oh well, I hope someone else is enjoying the heck out of it somewhere else in the world, and all it means is that I need to make another one. I probably would do it without sleeves next time, just because down here I don't wear sleeves that much, but yeah, I'm going to do some tutorials on the hairpin lace because it is really a wonderful technique to learn, and it's a lot simpler than you may think, and I think it just makes such an incredibly beautiful lace texture. What is hairpin lace? It is a technique of crochet that uses a wire frame with your crochet hook. And I do have a couple of videos on it if you look on my website or on my YouTube channel, but we'll do more in time too. Hello, Enriqueta from Argentina. Thanks for joining live. I'm not sure if I've even put a hairpin lace tool in my Amazon shop. I'll look today, and if I haven't, I'll add one there because it is really a great tool to have in your toolbox. Judy, does it take a long time to do hairpin lace? Not necessarily. Yes and no. I think the hardest part is keeping your strips straight before joining them, and I do have some really great tips for that. You actually use a lifeline, very similar to how you use a lifeline in knitting, and it is absolutely extremely important. What yarn for the tunic? That particular one used a ribbon yarn, but in Crochet So Lovely I did 2 pieces in hairpin lace in that book with different yarns, and it's absolutely beautiful. If I remember, I'll bring that book tomorrow. I did a shawl with hairpin lace and turned it into motifs, and the yarn I used was a different company, but it was very similar in texture to Be So Tender yarn. Texture and size, so a worsted weight textured yarn worked. Cotton worked absolutely beautifully in it. So, and what else did I use? I did a hairpin lace hat, I believe, and that one, I think I just used regular yarn. So it really doesn't matter what kind of yarn you use. Leah's husband made her a hairpin lace tool. That's cool. Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't make one. It would be absolutely something you could make. Maybe that'd be something fun for me to make. Yeah, so it's a little wonky to get used to it. It's a little wonky to get used to crocheting around the wires. And like I said, keeping your strips straight and flat for joining is, if you don't have tips and tricks, it can be a nightmare. But that's one of the reasons why I'll do some videos on it. And if you want to look back at my older videos, I did several demos on it on Knitting Daily TV. They're probably up on YouTube as well. But if you search hairpin lace on my channel, I definitely have a couple of videos. Back in my first book, Wrapped in Crochet, I did a beautiful scarf in hairpin lace. And in that one, I did a chevron stitch, which, like I said, this particular one here, that is the very simple joining technique of just joining one loop to one loop. But there's other ways of creating a serpentine or a chevron look, and in that book I have a beautiful scarf done in there too. And that one's done in a ribbon yarn. The reason why I've used ribbon yarns in the past is for the same reason that I was talking about drop stitches here. Because you're not doing a stitch in those sections, you can really show off unusual textured yarn. So like ribbon would be a great example of showing off texture. But combining multiple textured yarns is another way that you can really show off texture of yarn by doing hairpin lace or knitted drop stitches or broomstick lace. Let's see, I think I have broomstick lace in here too. Yes, I do. Hold on. Here we go. Here's another example of a crochet technique that shows off the texture of yarn because you get loops of the yarn that aren't stitched. This hat is called Cables and Lace Broomstick Hat. Gee, what an original name. This is broomstick lace, and that's done with a large dowel and a crochet hook. You can either use a giant crochet or knitting needle, or you could use a dowel, I suppose. I believe the name comes from using broomstick handles many years ago, which I think is fantastic. If you're going to do that, just make sure that it is really nice and smooth. If you're going to try it on a broomstick at home, I would try sanding it and polishing it nice and smooth so you don't snag your yarn. So here is, you can see that texture where if you were using a textured yarn, you would really be able to see that well. And if you could even make these longer, depending on the size of your dowel. Let's see what I used in this one. I used a US 17 or 12.75 millimeter knitting needle as my dowel. So yeah, it's another project in Crochet So Fine. And I have projects in both of those techniques in Crochet So Lovely as well. And while I've been talking, I see a lot of comments that I've missed, so let's see if I can catch up. Bootsy's mom made lots of stuff with broomstick lace. Yeah, that's awesome. Broomstick lace is not very difficult to make either, to use either, but you just need to, you know, learn the tips and tricks of it. I definitely have a few videos here on my channel. You can find, and I have a few patterns in different books, and we can do more too. Thanks, Lisa. Didn't realize I could have brought more books to show examples today too. Let's see what else we can talk about in a Knitting Rhapsody. See if anything else relates to this. No, lots of pretty pieces though. This is one. These are knit motifs that are joined as you go. Don't they look like crochet motifs? I was so proud of that. That was, and that project was the inspiration to end up writing my other knitting book, Knitting Outside the Swatch. All of the projects in that book were done with knit motifs that were joined as you go. This is one of my favorite pieces too. The Tree of Life Ruana. It's a simple seed stitch Ruana, but I embroidered the back to make a tree of life. There's intarsia for the tree trunk, but then the top of the tree is all done in embroidery. Isn't that beautiful? I love that one. Yeah, this one's available on Amazon. This is a Knitting Rhapsody. And it has a self-tie belt too. I always thought that was so pretty and easy to wear because of that. Oh, here's another piece with drop stitches. This is a different way of using drop stitches where you cross them over each other. Let's see, let me find a picture that shows. So this is the Infinity, is it a jacket? Cardi wrap with sleeves. It has that beautiful infinity motif on the back. But what I wanted to show you that on the fronts, I did this technique of making drop stitches and then crossing them. Maybe you can see that there. Can you see the drop stitches that are crossed? Again, it's another technique that shows off yarn texture. I hope that shows up. Here, there's a little more of it in the sleeve. Maybe you can see it there. Another photo. Maybe you can see a little bit of it there. It's not done all over, it's just done in, oh, here's a couple of great pictures of it. There, you can see the crossed over drop stitches there. There, all right. Found several examples. Yeah, and then here's the original sample that we looked at this morning. That has the drop stitches in between the cables. And what's cool is that because the cables, you know, pull on themselves, it gives you that gorgeous scalloped edge in between each of the drop stitches. I love how this turned out. And the fact that I used a reversible cable just made it even more beautiful because you had that many more options for styling it. When you have a reversible fabric, you can twist it and wrap it and do all sorts of things, and it looks identical on both sides. Look at that. That's when it's twisted. Look at that's right side and wrong side, or right side and wrong side, whichever way you want to look at it, doesn't matter. It is absolutely identical on both sides. So even as a shawl, that's perfect. Anything that you're going to see both sides on, it's really an incredible stitch pattern. Does anybody have any questions? I made it 20 minutes, yay! The wind stopped though. It's a little better when the wind stopped. Thanks, Melissa. Oh, thanks, Sherry. Yeah, it's fun to do show and tells. It's really fun because then I get to go down memory lane and remember why I made things and how I made them. I mean, shoot, we could just go through this whole book and, you know, there's another pattern here that has an elongated stitch, which is kind of similar to what we're talking about today, but the reason this one fits is because I use such a fine yarn and fine needle. This project is the equivalent of using Be So Fine yarn. It's a yarn that's out of business now, but it would be the equivalent of Be So Fine yarn. And I used a size C crochet hook. And look at those double trebles, how much they look like drop stitches even, because it's so delicate. So it actually is a stitch, but when you're alternating a row of those long double trebles with single crochet, you end up getting that same kind of a look. Hi, Constance. Let's see if we can find more photos of it. I think I showed this one already. Did I show that one? Yeah. This would make a beautiful blanket. It would make a beautiful shawl. You know, not with the body, just doing this. Wouldn't that be pretty? You could do that just all over on something. It'd be so pretty. This one is called the River Tunic, and from Crochet So Fine. But I think it kind of ties in with that texture we're talking about today. Even though it's done with a different technique, I think it still is kind of reminiscent of those contrasting strips. So we'll go back to the samples now. For those that didn't make it to the beginning, this is the Sprout Chain Shawlette from Crochet So Fine, but done in Be So Sporty yarn. And once you read and follow along on this pattern that is incredibly simple to make, you'll see that it's very easy. It's a top-down construction and very easy to memorize. So you could make this much bigger or smaller depending on the look you're going for. And it has these beautiful flower petal fringes at the bottom. I do have videos on this too, so you could look that up on my YouTube channel or my website. And then here's the Dazzling Tassels shawl, crocheted. Now this one doesn't have shaping, it's just a rectangle, but it also has that same texture. And look at Be So Dazzling yarn in the sun. I mean, really, these are the shiniest sequins I've ever seen in my life. They're so gorgeous. This one has little tassels done in Be So Fine yarn on the side, but super, super, super easy to make and quick. Very fast to make that one too. And then this is a knit drop. Those two are both crochet. This is a knit drop stitch shawl from 80 Handmade Gifts. And in this one we hold 3 yarns together to make it a thick project, to make it a quick and fast project, or quick and easy project. This one's holding Be So Dazzling, Be So Tender, and Be So Sporty Bling yarns together because I thought it was so awesome to be able to see all that texture in the drop stitches. And look at those sequins in the sun. Just gorgeous. So this one, you just work in stockinette for the whole project, and it's tiny. So you make the whole, and the drop stitches occur in the bind off. So when you get to this top row, you bind off a few stitches, then you drop a few. Bind off a few, then drop a few. Bind off a few, drop a few, and do that across. I do have videos on that on my website, and I don't have one for this particular shawl, but that will be coming soon. Does anybody have any questions? We've got another bird friend this morning. Doesn't look like we have much else going on out here. I'm going to show you the whole beach today. Yeah, it'd be great for a shower curtain with all the sparkle in it, but I don't know if I'd want it to get wet all the time. Okay, so I don't see any questions. I'm going to show you the beach. Here's the beach to the south of us. Not a soul. I'm the only person from here to the south. Here's the beautiful sunrise. Here's our curious bird friend. He keeps coming over to me and checking me out. Oh, I know. Now you're going to be shy since I turned the camera. And then the beach to the north of us, I see one person. 1, 2, 3 birds and 1 person today, not including me. Show the books again. Okay, so the books I brought today are A Knitting Rhapsody and Crochet So Fine. And I don't sell these ones directly on my website, but they are both available on Amazon and probably other places too. Yeah, it feels like a private beach this morning. There's a good reason though, it's freezing out here. I can't imagine too many people would come down here to just sit. I could see coming down here to run or briskly walk, but I can't imagine anyone else coming down here just to sit. It's really cold to sit still. You're welcome, Judy. Oh, Pamela, I'm so happy you're making some of my food recipes from 80 Handmade Gifts for your gifts this year. That's awesome. Making some of the citrus loaves and toffee, I think is what I read. That's wonderful. I will have to get started on my food gift soon too. What's today, the 6th? I've got some time still. I've made several earrings so far to make these earrings as gifts. And I'm not going to say who they're for because they might watch. Not everybody I'm making gifts for watches the podcast, but at least one person does. And if there are no other questions, then I'm going to call this a wrap so I can get back to my heated car. Let's take this last minute here to look out on this gorgeous view. We didn't even talk about the colors today. There's so many deep blues out there and deep blues and greens. And even the horizon still has that peachy glow to it as well. But let's take this last minute to soak in the sounds of these beautiful waves and all the pretty colors and set our intentions for the day. Thanks so much, everybody, for taking a few minutes to spend taking some time out of your busy schedule to spend a few minutes here with me today. I hope you enjoyed the sunrise, the sound of the waves, our little bird friends, the scenery, chatting with me and everyone else here. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.